Hey, and welcome to the AG Square channel. I'm Adrian Gonzalez, and I'm on a mission to share my experiences, opinions, and knowledge to inform and entertain you on topics such as finance, home ownership, real estate investments, and technology, and to help you become the best homeowner, investor, renter, and individual that you can be. Hey, and thank you for joining today's first episode of the AG Square channel. Today I want to focus on a few topics. First, to introduce myself and answer the question, who is Adrian Gonzalez? Second, I'm going to outline my journey on how I obtained a net worth of $1 million at the age of 30. I'll share events and points throughout my journey that enabled me to reach this goal. I'll conclude by sharing what's to come in this channel and why you may want to stick around. Throughout this episode, I will cover many terms, frameworks, strategies, or concepts that you may not be familiar with. I promise, more detailed videos demystifying these concepts will come. And remember, you have a direct influence on the topics we discuss, so go ahead and engage with me on the comments below, or directly on my Discord server. If you find this content useful, enjoyable, please go ahead and click that like and subscribe button. For those subscribed to the channel, message me on Discord with your YouTube username and whatever topics, questions, or scenarios you'd like to discuss with me. Because once a week, I'll select one individual at random to do a private one-to-one video chat to discuss your specific topics. So let's start with introducing myself. Currently, I'm 30 years old, single, and have been blessed with an amazing family, good health, and the incredible experience of immigrating from Mexico to the US. I'm a pretty risk-averse individual, but yet still find myself identifying as someone that enjoys thrills and adrenaline-seeking opportunities. I enjoy, for example, skydiving, which I've done 5 times now, going on helicopter rides, watching baseball, really all things food and wine related. Yes, I am a foodie and a wine snob. You'll probably see references throughout my channel on those. I also enjoy almost all outdoor activities, playing with my cat Dory, traveling the world, and of course, finance such as investing and learning new ways to have money work for me. I have to also mention my vice for playing poker, blackjack, and craps. No one's perfect, right? I consider myself a minimalist, preferring to focus more on high-quality experiences over materials and things. Some may even call me frugal, given my habits of maximizing what I get out of a dollar. But sure, I cut my own hair. Can you tell? I seek out buy one, get one free deals at groceries. I make my razors and toothpaste last. But I promise I'm not as intense as Clark Howard or other self-proclaimed penny-saving folks. But with all respect to Clark, he is an amazing individual to follow on his platforms for general finance knowledge and all-around great guy. Next, let's talk about my journey in achieving a net worth of $1 million, a personal milestone for me. Instead of starting at the beginning in this story, how about we start at the end first? Shortly, I'll share the percent distribution of my net worth. Now, this won't include my non-real estate debt to keep things simple for now, which I just have one thing. Almost everything else is paid off. And that one thing is my most recent new toy, a 2022 Ford F-150 Lightning car loan, which I absolutely love. And if folks are interested, I'd be more than happy to upload and create a video outlining my experience, what I love, as well as what I hate about it. All right, so let's get down into the actual net worth distribution. First, at the very highest of around 54%, we have my real estate holdings. As of now, this is made up of 4 single-family investment properties and 1 duplex. And yes, I do live in one of these properties today as is and do have roommates. It's a lifestyle that I'm going to outline in my second video in more detail, but one that worked really well for me. Second asset at 18% distribution is general stock market investments. My personal investments are for the most part in a combination of ETFs as well as in a blend of 10 or 12 individual stocks that I own. Sitting at around 17.6% is my investments spread across my 401k and Roth IRA. Next up is cash at around 4%. It's always good to have at least this amount, generally a little bit more, to be able to capitalize when an investment opportunity does come up. After that, at around 2.2%, we've got I bonds. This I got into recently about a year ago when interest rates and I bonds seem to be quite appealing. Right after that, we've got an additional more real estate cash, and this is cash reserves that are meant just purely to ensure that I have enough capital in case anything goes wrong with my real estate properties. And at the very lowest distribution, sitting on a whopping 1.83%, are my investments in crypto, which for the most part, the majority of around 90% is in Ethereum, and the other ones in effectively other coins. Okay, so some thoughts here. First, I don't have an exact distribution goal in mind as we went through this, but instead I've got two principles I adhere by. First principle, not one area should hold a large majority of my net worth. History has always reminded us of the saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Having a good distribution of my investments allows me to weather when there is a storm or a recession, as well as it enables me to adapt if certain asset types are outperforming others and have enough flexibility to be able to go to where I am increasing my return on investments. The second principle is to always be curious and explore new ways to generate more streams of revenue. In my specific example here that I outlined, I bonds, crypto, and real estate all came into the picture many years into my journey. Another thing to call out is that this didn't happen overnight. I also didn't have a master plan from the very beginning, but rather this is an end product that has evolved over a long time. Later in this video, I'll share and summarize the qualities that I credit in helping me get to this point in my life. So next up, let's cover my background. Now, let's go back and start from the very beginning. No, not that far back. I've been blessed with an incredible family. When I was 5 years old, my parents made what I consider the most brave and selfless decision to uproot their lives and relocate to the US, all with the hope that their kids could have a better opportunity and live a better life. Words really can't do justice to how thankful I am for them, as that decision set in place my entire journey. Now, of course, I love my home country. I'm proud of my Mexican heritage and culture, while also being proud to be an American. I was also fortunate with the opportunity to live in a few states from an early age, starting in Nebraska, then New York, then Georgia, where we remain today. This helped me garner appreciation for different lifestyles and perspectives. Now, I realize that 3 states may not seem like that much to some, but hey, it was a lot to me when I was younger. There were, of course, a lot of challenges with that amount of traveling at a young age, with the most challenging one being attending 3 different middle schools. But the benefits of maturing quickly and experiencing new places made those challenges worthwhile. So, next up, let's cover my early life and education. From a very early age, I prioritized my education and grades. I was that kid in high school and college, always keeping up with classes, homework, having a high GPA, and always seemed putting my entire energy into doing well at school. Yeah, I am a proud nerd. During high school, I got my first job at Papa John's, and I remember going into work with the attitude of, I want to be the best at something in this job. I didn't know what that something was, but I think I did just that. After getting a try at all the different in-store roles, I ended up becoming, you guessed it, the doughboy. And a dang good one at that. I took pride in creating the most picture-perfect crust, something you probably overlooked when eating that pizza. But I had a blast perfecting my technique in expanding the dough, tossing it in the air, and ultimately produced a very high volume of pizzas. Reflecting back on this first job and to my early college days, which I'll be frank, is a blur to my not so healthy coping mechanism of drinking, I learned essential life skills such as time management, prioritization, strong planning, teamwork, having a support group, and even appreciating the value of $1. I actually began saving from this early on, spending a minimum of what I made. I'm grateful that while attending Georgia Tech, I also had the incredible opportunity to gain work experience as part of their co-op, or internship program. Now, like all things in life though, these events and opportunities present themselves throughout my entire life and throughout your life. I like to think that is where the phrase create your own luck comes from. Yes, luck is real and it's sprinkled throughout the entire life. And through some eyes, it may seem like others besides you are luckier. But by living life with a mindset of you control more than you think and acting on whatever crosses your path, the combination of my decisions to major in computer engineering, have a strong GPA, and complete 4 internships resulted in me graduating in 4 years with a full-time job as a software engineer lined up in Massachusetts. I was lucky that my parents moved to Georgia. I was lucky that my dad was in the IT industry, but I very well could have decided to not capitalize on those opportunities and taken a very different route in my life. I decided not to waste that opportunity. So, with the exception of me now having to leave the family nest and relocate to Massachusetts for my first post-college job, life is good at this point. All right, if you're still with me, how about next we cover the period after I obtained my bachelor's from tech? By the time I got my bachelor's, I learned through my own curiosity the importance of investing and saving. But of course, as a broke college student, I hadn't had the opportunity to exercise those muscles. Well, during my first full-time job, that quickly changed. But before starting my job, I sat down and created a budget on Excel, ensuring to allocate around 50% of my income per month towards saving. I'm putting aside 15% to invest in my company's 401k program that had an incredible company matching program. That left me with about 35% to live off of. How did I even learn to do this? Well, that was by my own habit of curiosity. I began listening during college to folks like Clark Howard and browsing the internet to learn as much as I could just around finance. I'll go into more detail on what my budget looked like, how it evolved over time, and my thought process on sticking to it, and other relevant topics in future videos. The key takeaway for now is that I started applying financial discipline and setting financial goals from the very get-go. But don't feel bad or intimidated if you haven't, wherever you are in your journey, because it really is never too late to start. I hope that my channel can give you the knowledge, resources, motivation to consider planning, starting, or continuing this discipline. So, after 2 to 3 years as a software engineer in Massachusetts, I ended up moving to California for work, still as a software engineer. And I promise the fact that on the first year living in Massachusetts, we broke the record for most amount of accumulated snowfall of roughly 85 or 88 inches. I promise that was not a factor in my decision to move to the entire other end of the nation. And it was around this point in my life where I began investing my savings into ETFs and starting to invest in individual stocks. There was a lot of learning that I did prior to buying any individual stocks though. I first started by understanding the basics. Where can I invest? What is involved in investing? How do taxes work on gains and or losses? How does one go about deciding if an investment is good or not? What are some strategies to investing? Well, after reading online articles on the differences in fundamental analysis and technical analysis, and looked at various key performance indicators to ultimately be able to create a systematic way to determine if a potential stock was a buy. More on this in future videos. Now, real quick on the investment theme. I want to strongly advocate to you to resist that urge of any get-rich-quick scheme, any investment fad, or really anything that's affiliated with to the moon or FOMO, like a large portion of cryptocurrencies and NFTs were and still to this day are. And instead to focus on understanding how whatever you're considering investing on works. What value or problems will it solve for people? The former I like to call lazy investing, and it is the same as gambling in a casino. And trust me, casinos are a lot more engaging and fun. The latter is what I call educated investing, and it is much more empowering. So back to educated investing. The approach I started applying is called dollar cost averaging, a topic I'll go into more detail later in future videos. This technique allowed me to incrementally build my portfolio and manage it regardless if the market was going down or up. Hold on, Adrian. Where is the real estate at this point? You've been talking for all this time, and the biggest asset distribution you haven't even brought up. I promise, we're getting there soon. But first, while investing started early in my career, I also had a goal to increase my salary much more than the average 3 to 5% increases seen in corporate America. I did this by building my brand and never shying away from seeking opportunities outside of my current employer. No. By brand, I don't mean my business. My "This is Adrian" brand. I describe an individual's brand in 3 parts: hard skills, soft skills, and how people perceive you. Let's briefly go through each one. Hard skills. These are tangible skills that takes education, experience, and aren't commonly shared across all professions. Be the best and master these skills. Things that can have someone come and say, "I need this, so I will go to you." Next, we have soft skills. These are qualities that are more commonly shared across all professions. Things like leadership, communication, giving presentations, storytelling, influencing, time management, prioritization, among other things. Lastly, how others perceive you. Being perceived as reliable, respectful, trustworthy, caring will amplify your life compared to being perceived as arrogant, selfish, disrespectful. When building my brand, as an engineer, I first focused on my hard skills and the impact those skills provided. I gained these skills on the job and by investing in myself, by having my employers pay for my master's in computer science that I did online also at Georgia Tech. Yes, I balanced a full-time job and my master's. Do you now believe me when I say I'm a workaholic? Well, over the years, I began focusing less on strengthening my hard skills, but not stopping, and instead began building my soft skills by asking my manager and my mentors to help me identify opportunities for me to do so. What was the end result, you ask? Well, I have more than tripled my salary from my first job out of college to where I am now 9 years later. I'll let you do the math on how much of an annual increase that was every year. Here is the important part. I increased my salary while keeping my monthly expenses the same. So as my salary went up, so did the amount of money I had available to invest. Well, at this point, I realized that all my investments were in stocks and ETFs, and I began asking myself, what else can I learn and invest to put my money to work? The idea of real estate was still very foreign to me, but I knew that housing is that one asset that will always be in need and that is real, that you can touch, and that serves many different purposes. So I began learning and came across a few legends in this space. They were Graham Stephan, Ryan Pineda, and Dave Ramsey. I encourage folks interested in learning about finance, home ownership, or real estate investments to check out their YouTube channels and learn about their journey. I look up to all of these 3 individuals, and all were and are a strong influence in my life. Anyways, this opened my eyes up to a new world, and I started collecting all the knowledge I would later apply in the near future. I'll cover these in more detail in future videos, but what I first came up with was a business plan on what type of real estate I wanted to invest in and how I would operate as a landlord. But I didn't act on this plan immediately, as I quickly realized that where I lived in California, the cost of buying homes was very difficult for me to tap into. Now, I'm certain that I could have found a way, but I prioritized my career in technology while keeping my real estate plan on hold for now. However, I kept on learning about real estate. And this is another important takeaway. It's okay to come up with a plan. investing time in learning and strategizing, and ultimately decide not to act if the time isn't right for it. Don't abandon the idea or efforts you put in though, for you never know if in the future that timing presents an opportunity to later act on this. Life has been beyond amazing up to this point, right? Well, every story has to have a low point. And for me, that was when I was informed that I was going to be laid off from my job. This rattled me, and questions started circling all around my brain. What did I do wrong? How did this happen after so much effort and work put into my life and my career? Well, let me cut to the chase. The answer is nothing. That is the ugly risk of relying on being employed. You don't control when your employer will need to reduce headcount and lay off people. But I couldn't be more thankful looking back now, because this catastrophe led to the creation of my real estate business. Now, fortunately, I was given 3 months of pay to transition my work and ultimately find a new job. Truth be told, I spent the first week drinking a lot of wine to cope. It wasn't pretty, but I'm human after all, and I felt god-awful. But I would not allow me to lose control of my destiny and feel bad any longer than just that 1 week period. So after that rough patch, I navigated the situation with a mindset of positivity and confidence in my abilities to control how I would react to this life-changing event. I decided to do some soul searching while hiking and going on trails in the beautiful nature that California has to offer. And the outcome was that I committed to this goal. I would move back to Georgia and move back in with my parents for some months while I saved up to buy for my first home. It was this that was the start of my real estate business. My career in tech was still a priority though, so now I began searching for a job back in Georgia. Fortunately, when working in technology, I managed to find one and things were now in motion. Even moving back to Georgia was an incredible experience, as my dad and I drove from California to Georgia to make this into a very memorable experience. I had a chance to visit the Grand Canyon, many state parks, and spent a lot of memorable father-son time. It was actually on this road trip where I made my initial cryptocurrency investment on the road. I remember buying Ethereum in a motel that we stayed at one night. More on that topic in another episode though. Anyways, let's fast forward to me now living with my parents as a 26-year-old. My real estate plan was to do the house hacking strategy, something I'll go into much more detail and share my experience in a future video. But in short, this strategy is where you live in your home while renting out a portion to others. This worked incredibly well, as I found and bought my first home in 2018, less than 8 months after moving in with my parents. Within a month of moving into it, I already had 2 rooms rented out. Boy, was this first one incredibly nerve-wracking. But I was confident thanks to all my preparation of learning and planning to do well. Given this was my first home and the first time renting out rooms while I lived there, I took my time and lived there effectively rent-free for 2 years. When wanting to learn valuable handy skills to reduce the need to rely on pricey contractor jobs or handyman services. I took my learnings from that first home and purchased and moved into my second home in 2020. This was during the time COVID was gaining momentum, and I used this as an opportunity to buy my third home just a few months later. This third property is the only one that I took out an investment property loan instead of a conventional primary homeowner loan. The reason was because of the uncertainty and chaos that COVID brought. It ultimately disrupted people from being able to do home showings and operate in person, which made it an incredible buyer's market. And this is a prime example of not trying to time any market, but instead spotting for opportunities in what we all knew and still know to this day as a historical challenge. A year later, I bought and moved into my fourth property. This one ended up being a duplex that I got an FHA loan at a mind-blowing 2.3% interest rate for 30 years, only having to put down 3.5% for the down payment. An incredible deal that I didn't pass up. 10 months later, I bought my fifth home in 2022 when interest rates were increasing and again buyers were scared, which created an opportunity for me to apply a different negotiating strategy and have the seller actually pay down permanently my interest rate. The seller put down roughly 6% of the home's price toward buying down the rate, which ended up becoming 5.75% for a 30-year conventional loan. This fifth property was the biggest home at around 2,600 square feet with 5 bedrooms and 3 full bathrooms. It has a perfect layout that allowed me to rent out 3 rooms while I live in the basement working from home for my career in technology and creating this video. I plan on buying a 6th property in the coming months so that I can have my own place or go into buying a commercial multifamily property where I can still have my own unit. With all my properties within a 15-minute drive, I have been able to effectively manage them all as a one-man team. All my properties are cash flow positive, have appreciated significantly, have strong rental demand, and are in great neighborhoods that are in high demand by families. I don't have any co-investors to be responsible for or accountable for. I don't have any co-owners that were to enter disagreements with. It's all me. A total success. In future videos, I'm going to share all my learnings throughout this journey. Topics such as how and why an LLC is so important, how I search for homes, how I go through the buying process, how I search for tenants, how I screen tenants, how I create a lease agreement, how I onboard tenants, how I renew leases, how I manage my books, things like revenue, expenses, taxes. I'll also share how I do repairs, doing renovations, how I work with contractors, how I remove the PMI on my loans, and how I like to take on good debt when doing expensive renovations. Excited for future content? I sure am to create it. So now we're at the point of the video here where I want to synthesize all the qualities that you might have heard me cover as I've told my story, but let's also not forget, you may have just simply skipped down and wanted to say, well, tell me what qualities made you get to where you're at, Adrian. So let me go ahead and do that. First, a growth mindset. Earlier, I mentioned how I always wanted to learn new things. In this case, wanting to learn about investing and about real estate. I also mentioned I was curious and wanted to learn how to be a handyman, and that's been invaluable, saving me, honestly, probably in the realm of $5,000 to $10,000 just by doing some of my own renovations and repairs. I also mentioned about solidifying my brand, hard skills, soft skills, and how others perceive me. All of this combination just bubbles up to having a growth mindset, wanting to continuously learn and improve oneself. Second quality, courage. It's not easy to act on opportunities that are foreign to you, nor to embrace the fact that you will have to learn as you go. I did this by jumping into investments, relocating to many different states, and learning about real estate. Ultimately, making what I considered one of the biggest leaps financially, investing-wise. Buying my first home and building that up to 5. Third, ambition. I was not satisfied with a successful career in technology. I strived for more and will continue to have that same drive and hunger. Fourth, building strong relationships. Throughout my career, I gravitated towards surrounding myself with people I could learn from, that could mentor and guide me. In real estate, my realtor and loan officer, for example, were instrumental in being able to move efficiently during the home buying process. The same for any contractors I work with to maintain the properties in good shape. And even with my tenants to the extent that they provide referrals at times. Fifth, being resourceful. Streamlining my operations required using tools such as Zillow, Redfin, the county parcel records, websites like apartments.com for managing my properties, Google Drive to store all my documents and receipts, Adobe for signing PDF documents digitally, using a business credit card to accrue cash back on expenses such as utilities, and so on. Sixth, being empathetic and respectful. This goes back to the how you're perceived portion of your brand. I treat my tenants the way I would want to be treated and the way I appreciated to be treated when I was a renter. I also keep my properties in a condition that I would live in, which I have lived in all of them for the most part, with the exception of one. This includes doing the minor renovations that make their lease more enjoyable, or working with them when things happen and rent may just have to be late for a month. This boils down to being a businessman while also being a good person and doing the right thing by others. Here's something very important to consider. You are an individual. I am an individual. We each will have varying qualities based on your personality, the industry you're working in, and what you want to get out of life. It's all incredibly personal, so it is perfectly fine if you are completely lacking in any one of these qualities, or maybe that you may not demonstrate it as strongly as someone else. What's important is to have self-awareness on what qualities you can strive to improve so you can be the very best individual you can be. Don't compare yourself to others. Instead, learn from others, get inspired by others, and prioritize feeling good about yourself, feeling proud about yourself and your accomplishments and what's to come to the future. Be excited for what's to come. Alright, so what's next? I got a lot of content in store for you all. Next up, I'll be sharing what I believe is one of the most effective approaches to becoming a homeowner, and that is house hacking. It's a strategy that I applied on 4 out of the 5 investment properties that I own, and a strategy that may help first-time home buyers land their first home in today's era where affordability is a tremendous challenge. In that video, I'll break down what house hacking is, share what characteristics are important to making house hacking work, and go through step by step how I used it to accomplish success. I'll follow that up with a video breaking down the process for searching and buying a home, a process that can be very stressful, mysterious, and intimidating. I'll also publish content around finance, investing, and technology topics. And keep a lookout for future content around all the different DIY, do-it-yourself home projects I've done, where you'll learn from my mistakes and successes as I share my experience by going through step by step on doing that project so you can feel confident when taking on that next home project. And that concludes our very first episode on our AG Squared channel. Thank you for joining.
Well, that wraps this episode. Thank you for watching. If you found this content useful or at the very least amusing, please go ahead and click that like and subscribe button below. It's immensely helpful in positioning me to continue producing more content for you all. Please let me know what you thought of this episode. What questions do you have? Or what topics you'd like to see me talk about in future episodes. But remember, for those subscribed to the channel, message me on Discord with your YouTube username and whatever topics, questions, or scenarios you'd like to discuss with me. Once a week, I'll randomly select one lucky individual to do a private one-to-one video chat to discuss your topics. Thanks again, have a great day, and continue being amazing.